government says that there will be an increase in cost of electricity in the coming months. Are we going to breathe? Now, speaking at a conference in Tanzania, President Tinubu's special advisor on energy, Olu Verheijen, explained that electricity prices must rise to attract private investment and improve service delivery.
Now, here's what you should know. The federal government says electricity rates must rise by an estimated 2/3. The government is working on a $32 billion plan to expand Nigeria's electricity access. The federal government also says higher tariffs will help fund the power sector and reduce blackouts.
Now, it's also important to mention that this warning comes less than a year after a 300% tariff hike. And Nigeria's power sector struggles with low supply despite the country's 14 gigawatts installed power. Siemens is partnering as well with the federal government on a $2.3 billion project to improve the transmission. And the federal government says subsidies will protect low-income consumers. Joining us to speak more to this and talk about the implications of this planned tariff hike and Nigeria's power situation is the former chairman of the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, Dr. Sam Amadi. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, thank you.
All right, this planned tariff hike has already started to garner reactions. There's a possibility of protests that will be coming on by the NLC. They've announced their planned protest. Whilst they say on the one hand that they're looking to attract more investment and they need to be able to balance production, is there not a higher possibility that this tariff increase will send a lot of businesses, small and medium, into extinction?
Well, there is. This is a problem. The fiscal regime of government means that, or the monetary policy this time around, means that the prices, the cost of production has gone up. That's one basic fact. So electricity assets are purchased in dollar, even though we have a policy of conversion. But the point is that once there is devaluation of currency, once there's inflation, the implication is that you're going to rebase those costs. So what's happening in the electricity sector is unusual. Usually, when prices increase, there are three things happening. One is either there are new investments that are made which will improve power supply, and then the operators need to recoup those returns. And so you can see small adjustment in prices, in cost. Or there is emergency, let's say, countries with hurricane, and therefore you need to invest quickly to ramp up, to restore the same level of supply, and then those costs has to be approved and somehow amortized with small increases. But what we are facing now is that there is no significant increase coming anywhere. And I've said that before. When this tariff was approved, the so-called band A and B and C, I spoke with some of the NEC officials. I said, look, what we are doing is that the NEC is being forced to respond to the currency crisis, the inflation that's happening, by increasing tariffs without any serious improvement in quality or any new investment. So, yes, it's going to affect small and medium enterprises because the unit cost of energy will go high. And what NEC did the last time was to say it's for those that go band A. But the truth is that almost everybody is being pushed to band A. And I say it was dishonest to say that you should have said, look, we're going to have tariff increase. I did about 2 increases in my own time, but I was upfront clear. I went about the media saying this is the justification, we need to attract investment, blah, blah, blah. So the point here is this is a difficult situation for the electricity sector. Consumers are not going to necessarily see improvement. And the double whammy is that they are those who are, if there's no 24-hour power as expected, they're going to go back to diesel generator, they're going to go back to fuel, and then they're going to also increase their costs. So it looks bad for cost of doing business on the whole, and maybe NEC is planning a circle. They just have to kind of find the money to show off these failing assets, the disclosed operators and so on. At the same time, they want to make sure that people can consume. And again, if these increases keep going up and there are no commensurate improvement in quality of service, it leads to bypassing and theft of power. That's a relationship between increase in tariffs without service matching up with increase in power theft, whether in terms of bypassing or conniving with disco operators to cheat the system. So it's not looking good, and probably inevitable because of the policies the government have taken. But I think NEC should go back and think how this will affect different consumer groups, especially middle-small enterprises. They don't have too much, cost margin to internalize this cost without passing it on to their customers. And in many cases, they do just have to go out of business because they have no room to pass on, internalize or externalize those costs.
Thank you very much, Dr. Amadi, for your fine analysis. It seems, NEC, the first line of thinking is let's pass it on to the consumers. And you've said rightly that there's no commensurate improvement in the quality of electricity we've seen. Now, the government seems to be backing NEC. They're saying that there will be subsidies for vulnerable citizens. But based on past experiences, do you trust the government to implement a fair and transparent subsidy system that truly protects low-income Nigerians? Because when it comes to subsidy, what we see is, bags of rice. We don't have light. Don't give me rice. That's what we often get in this part.
Well, I think the reasonable subsidy government will do is to not increase the tariff of the supposed poor consumers. Now, this is a problem because the customer classification is not based on usage, actually, as much as on location. So, for example, you're on band A, band B, and those bands are more or less based on areas that the discos have mapped out. So, if we had real database classification, which means everybody is metered, if you consume below X amount, your tariff rate is X. If you now improve what we call two-tier tariff, so all those who consume less than 100 kilowatt hour per month, for example, that rate, your unit cost can be 20,000. Then if you move to 200, it becomes 25,000. So if you have that kind of system, then they can isolate the so-called poor people and then means-test it. So we don't have that data. Now, what's going to happen is that NEC might increase the tariff of some class of band A, for example, leave so-called band B, C, D, but the distribution companies will keep on migrating those people in B, C, D to A to make up their money because the percentage of people who are going to be on A will be limited. So, at the end of the day, really, the poor people get hurt. That's the truth of the matter. Until you have a real data, clear data, and you clearly articulate and have enforcement and retail service level. Now, the other problem that's going to happen is that many states are now taking out themselves from NEC. So the confusion is, can these states subsidize consumers? So when NEC says tariff will increase, is it tariff increasing to those states also that are no longer or somewhat migrating away from NEC control? There is going to be a lot of confusion. But for me, my prediction is that consumers will pay more and probably will not get the matching level of improvement in quality of service. There's no way. The volume of power that's come to the system in the short to medium term is not big.
But that's unfair.
The distribution network is not that big. So we should expect massive improvement in service conditions.
I want to speak to that because that's really unfair. If what you have said is what we experience, where people in the different bands are now moved to band A, meaning that people will have to pay more for the service. Even those in band A are complaining about their epileptic power supply. We're still experiencing blackouts. The grid is collapsing every day. It decides to, have a mood swing. So shouldn't there be penalties if there's an increase in tariff? Shouldn't there be laid down penalties when the distribution doesn't match the expected supply?
Who's protecting the Nigerian consumers?
Sorry, I didn't get that. You say shouldn't there be what?
Penalties, where we see that people are paying for more, they're paying higher tariff, but that the supply is not matching what they're paying for.
There should be penalty, and that's what NEC exists to do. But see the problem. So the point I'm making is this. Every regulatory intervention is matched with the proper data and capability. So this is it now. NEC has punished some people who have egregious violation. But the point I'm making is that it's difficult for NEC to monitor this network perfectly. Again, NEC also knows that these discos are falling behind in revenue. So there's some kind of dead brain here. You know what? We know that they need to make more money because their books are not balancing well. You need to have regulatory integrity. And then the policy side of it should be strong. The minister everybody should be strong and say, okay, we need to increase the financing of the utilities. But at the same time, we need to be very focused on auditing their revenue. When I was there, a year, 2 years after preparation before I left, that we did 6 months after, we did a snap audit of all the discos and discovered that some of them were overspending, some of them were using the funds to live large and penalize them. So audit is the way to go. They must be able to, if they're going to put this increase, they have to improve enforcement. And so far, I don't think that the enforcement level matches the level that we need to put these discos, make sure that the discos game is to increase the revenue all the time. That's how they behave. So I don't blame them. But the work of the regulator is to ensure that there's no windfall. And what I'm saying is that it's the temptation to move people into so-called band A and promising to deliver them more power and not do that is very high. And so what we're going to see is that the discos will probably want to, but the more band A you get, the more tariff increase you get for yourself. But the question is, if you have limited power, let's say 400 megawatts for Abuja, for example, and you put many people in band A, where the power come from? So either you move away power from other citizens and then give those people some power to keep them happy for the band A. So either there's no power increase, but you have done reallocation, and many people who are not on that band A will have a lot of outages, and maybe people on band A will have some, but not enough to justify that. So head or tail, there's a gap here, and that gap is that we must work very hard to improve the sector, increase the revenue that comes through proper management of the revenue change management, and again, improve the quality of power going to the grid. If you have more power, then you can unlock different pricing. More people will take more power to pay more premium. Then some people will still have good enough power to stay at a range where they can afford. If there had been more supply coming in and there's now a tariff increase and a change in tariff from band A to B, then it makes sense that we give people premium and they pay more so that we receive more money and cross-subsidize those who are not going to get premium power, but they have enough power. So let's say everybody gets like a 10-hour, where regulated or 12, 15 hours out of 24. So everybody knows that between this time, there will be an outage. I will have power between this time. With that, the poor people, the working class people who don't have that money to pay much, may stay comfortable. But what we have is unscheduled, unplanned, and again, low quality power available. So my sense is that this is all done to reflect the current monetary policy, devaluation, inflation has eaten up or increased the cost of business, and NEC has to reindex those costs to allow this entities to be in power. But the problem is, should be honest, I said, look, we have a financial headwind we are facing. We need to rescue this sector. We need to find revenue for them, and therefore the tariffs increase. And then across board, these are the areas of improvement in service, not just hours, but also quality of power, even customer care, customer consultation. There are certain aspects that they can build confidence of customers while they agree to have this, to move towards this hard time. And maybe in 2, 3, 5 months, we have additional 1,000 megawatts into the grid that's able to be served, not just generation, but able to be distributed. And that will get the power average to maybe 5,000, and then you give more hours to those people who are struggling, and then somehow, with more power, you have higher revenue, and maybe at some point the tariffs will drop or at least stabilize. But for now, it's going to be difficult for the sector in the coming months.
Now, Dr. Amadi, you talk about more power, but I believe Nigeria has an installed capacity of 14 gigawatts, but it's only 4 to 5 gigawatts reaching end users. What does this say about Nigeria's power efficiency? And you also talked about, the power sector feeling the effects of devaluation and all of that. The Nigerian people have a threshold. They've already passed on the cost to them in pricing of food and other services. There's also talks of a 50% increase in telcos. And now, after a 300% increase in less than a year, the power that the NEC is saying they want another increment. I mean, there's only so much the average Nigerian can take. So my question to you is, how can government improve energy efficiency? Where should they focus their reforms on? And what's a win-win scenario for you in all of this, in very simple terms? Thank you.
Well, I think you got it right. There's everywhere the people get more hit. Again, increase in tariff will also increase cause more inflation on basic goods and services, except some happens. Again, what can government do? I think the critical thing here is maybe find what can drive down the cost of energy. Thankfully, Dangote, I had a former conversation, Dangote is trying to come down. So assuming, because all those fits into the cost of everything. So what we can do at this point is to find a way, maybe change this policy of currency devaluation. I think if you do a managed float that perhaps brings dollar to naira to, let's say, around 700 or 800 or thereabout, then you might see a quick reduction in tariffs, because those tariffs index those changes in cost. That's one aspect. So policy-wise, government has inflicted harm, maybe for good reason, let's hope, but so far, those reasons are not coming forward. That's on the policy side. I think on the regulatory side, if NEC manages very well, they could drive down the cost. There are still levels of inefficiency in the operation of these utilities that they can reduce costs, they can reduce wastages, reduce corruption. And you can see maybe some degree of drop in their cost. When the cost drops, then it goes back to consumer. Again, I think the governors, state governors, should be very quick to see if they can do renewable energy. I mean, there is a provision for feed-in tariffs, for distributed generation, embedded generation. So far, the states are not aggressive in supplementing the available power, because if you have some states create some modular power, then the cost of dropping it in their states less, and they can see more power at cheaper rates in some states than others. So we need to do a couple of things. Unfortunately, the policies and the capabilities do not match the level of crisis that we're facing now. And in my own sense, that the regulator, the Ministry of Power can do a lot to see if they can reduce by cleaning up the data sets, ensuring that there are no wastes, there are no windfalls that are going to this. Look, these companies are also declaring profit every day. So operationally, they're not doing badly. But financially, but operationally, they're not doing very well. So there's a gap between commercial profitability and operational efficiency. So you have to close that gap and make sure that you reduce the cost and people have better service for less pay. That will happen when you improve the operational efficiency of the utilities.
Dr. Sam Amadi, thank you for joining us this morning. We just wait to see what the impact of this will be. My heart is already beating because I know my estate will soon put a message in the group for all of us to beware.
I mean, we can't take it anymore. Thank you so much for your valuable insights, Dr. Sam Amadi, former chairman of the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission. Thank you.